who want that.
I think Colorado's missing the glory days of his '94 season, 11-1 Fiesta Bowl victory over Notre Dame. They're missing those old days.
Oh, the good old days. They'd probably even take the Gary Barnett days, where they still at least got to the Big 12 title game and then got 70 put up on them by Texas. They'd probably still take that too.
Absolutely.
But let's pick some games coming up this weekend. It's championship weekend. Let's start in the MAC to find out who's going to be the MAC daddy. Number 25, Northern Illinois. They are red hot. They got to take on Miami of Ohio. And I think Miami of Ohio, one of the great stories in college football this year. This was a one-win team a year ago. Mike Haywood takes this team to 8 wins. Last week, Ohio was upset by Kent State, which is why Miami is in this position. They've won 4 in a row, but Northern Illinois is just sizzling on offense. They've won 9 games in a row. This offense is one of the best in the MAC, and it's also one of the best in college football as they put up 39 points a game. Jerry Kill's done a phenomenal job there. I'm going to go with Northern Illinois to win the MAC. Jake, who do you have?
I'm going with Northern Illinois as well. Their quarterback, Chandler Harnish, is leading an offense that scores 39 points a game, averages almost 300 yards of rushing offense a game. And in the MAC, they've just steamrolled everyone. They are winning games in the MAC by an average of over 30 points a game. They're by far and away the best team in the MAC. I think they're going to win.
Yeah, Coach Cuban at Western Michigan gave him a run a few weeks ago, but nonetheless, Northern Illinois came out with a 28-21 victory in that game and have played great football this entire season. They got a big win up in Minnesota, which Iowa wasn't able to do this past weekend. Chad Spann, he's rushed for 1,239 yards and 20 touchdowns this season. He is the offense because Northern Illinois ranks in the bottom 10 in passing in the country, but rushing, they're right up there in the top 25, doing a really good job. So I think Northern Illinois is just too much in the trenches on the offensive line, and Chad Spann has a big day. But Miami of Ohio, #1 in the MAC against the run. So Miami of Ohio will be prepared and they'll be ready to go. But I think Northern Illinois gets the job done. I think they're used to winning. I think they're just on a roll.
Miami of Ohio broke my heart 2 weeks ago when they beat down my Temple Owls. And albeit an injury-depleted Temple Owls, but they still beat him. Just broke my heart because I love Al Golden, who didn't mention as a coaching candidate. Maybe he'll wait for the Penn State job. Maybe he'll take a job this year. I'm interested to see what happens there. Let's go to the SEC. #1 Auburn, #19 South Carolina. Auburn is the only team in college football that has beaten 5 teams that are currently ranked in the top 25. Auburn just finds ways to win games. 8 times this year, they have trailed 4 of those games. They're down by 10 points or more, but they just find ways to win games. I'm just going to throw everything else out the window. This team just knows how to win. Down 24-0 to Alabama on the road. Tuscaloosa finds a way to win. Mike, does Auburn get stopped by South Carolina?
I think Auburn's going to find a way to win this football game. We've thrown out all the superlatives all season. Cam Newton, he's the best player in the country, likely going to win the Heisman unless he has a really, really bad game on Saturday, but I think he's going to get the job done. And the one thing about South Carolina that Auburn's got to be worried about is Alshon Jeffrey had his best game of the season, 192 yards receiving on 8 receptions earlier this season to Jordan Hare. South Carolina, though, turning the ball over in the fourth quarter. Stephen Garcia falling apart, kind of that old typical South Carolina that we've been used to for the last decade. But at the end of the season, Steve Spurrier's finally gotten that team over the hump, able to go into Gainesville, get a big win, able to blow out Clemson on the road. So the South Carolina team playing really well right now. Marcus Lattimore, still a freshman, but played really well this season. I think Stephen Garcia and this team plays better. #1 rushing defense in the SEC, but I think Auburn, as we saw last week against Alabama, like you talked about, Alex, they're down 24-0 against their biggest rival. They come back. Nick Fairley on defense, making big plays, knocking McElroy down a couple times. I think this defense at Auburn, this rushing defense, which is #2 in the SEC, comes through, and Auburn wins in somewhat of a shootout.
Jake, a lot of people not giving South Carolina a chance. I think unfairly so. Do you got them winning?
Yeah, a lot of people are just assuming that Auburn's going to win, and I, for one, I've really not been sold on Auburn so far this year. Their defense ranks 9th in the SEC in both scoring defense and total defense. Cam Newton's by far and away the best player in college football, and I'm completely sold on him. I'm completely sold on their offense, but their defense just I don't believe in it. And I think South Carolina has a team that's balanced on offense and defense. I think they have the ability to win this game, and I think they do win this game. Stephen Garcia is a quarterback who's received a lot of criticism at his time in South Carolina, but he's put together a great year this year. They had Auburn on the ropes earlier this year. A lot of teams have had Auburn on the ropes earlier this year, but they kind of fell apart in the fourth quarter. Stephen Garcia had 2 fumbles that he lost, got pulled from the game. They lost it in the fourth quarter, but this time I think Steven Garcia has a huge game. He's going to find Alshon Jeffrey, one of the best receivers in the country. Lattimore is a great freshman running back. I think they'll win in a shootout. They have more defense than Auburn does. We'll see if Steven Garcia can put up the points to beat Auburn. I think he does. I think we're going to see a big upset this weekend.
Well, and if that happens, we're going to have one of the biggest debates we've ever had on Combat Sports Talk next week, whether in a one-loss Auburn or an undefeated TCU should be in the national title.
And I'll tell you what, one more key for South Carolina, and I know this may seem a little counterintuitive to the fans out there, but you have to make Cam Newton do everything. I think you have to make him do everything to beat you. Auburn, Terrell Zachary, Darvin Adams, two really strong wide receivers who played well last week against Alabama, and then Ontario McCaleb and Michael Dyer, the running backs. Dyer had over 100 yards against South Carolina in their last meeting. If he has a day like that again, and you couple that with Cam Newton's abilities with his legs and his arm, I just don't think South Carolina is going to be able to hang on throughout the duration of 4 quarters, but they need to make Cam Newton do it all on his own. And if Cam Newton can do it all on his own, then, well, that's just the way it is.
Big 12 time, number 9 Oklahoma, number 13 Nebraska, and how fitting for the last ever Big 12 championship game, or at least the last one that will feature the University of Nebraska, that these two rivals play. Nobody has won more Big 12 titles since the championship game was put in than Oklahoma. These two teams, a lot of different contrasting styles. Oklahoma, best passing team in the Big 12. Nebraska, best passing defense in the Big 12. Nebraska, best third down defense in the Big 12. Oklahoma, best third down offense in the Big 12. It's going to be interesting to see what gives in this game. Jake, who are you taking in this one?
Well, both these teams bring good defenses to the table and high-scoring offenses to the table. The difference is Oklahoma has a lot more variety in their offense. DeMarco Murray's a heck of a running back. He, before the season, was one of the players hyped for the Heisman. He's had kind of a disappointing year, but still rushed for over 1,000 yards. Landry Jones has had a terrific year, throwing for almost 4,000 yards so far. They have a high-scoring offense, good defense. I think that they'll be able to contain the Nebraska running game because Nebraska really can't throw the ball all that well. I think they contain Nebraska on offense. I think they win the Big 12.
Right.
Yeah, the matchup I'm looking at on Saturday, and I think the nation needs to look at it too, is Prince Amukamara, the cornerback at Nebraska, versus Ryan Broyles, the all-star wide receiver at Oklahoma. That's going to be a huge matchup in this game. Nebraska, number 2 in the country against the pass. They have a really good defense. Bo Pelini and Carl Pelini have done a great job molding that defense, bringing them back to their historic prestige under Tom Osborne, in the 80s and 90s. So I think Oklahoma wins this football game. I like Jake's argument about the variety on offense, and I don't think Taylor Martinez is going to be at 100%, and he might not even play on Saturday. Cody Green, who is a good quarterback, is not good enough to put enough points on the board to commandeer the offense throughout the duration of 4 quarters. So I like Oklahoma with their variety on offense, like Jake said, to win the game.
And I'm with you both, too. I like Oklahoma to win this football game. ACC, number 15, Virginia Tech versus Florida State, who's also ranked. I like this matchup between these two ACC teams, and it took NC State losing to Maryland to get Florida State into this game. But Florida State's playing pretty good football at the end of the year, coming off a big win versus their arch rival, Florida. I like Virginia Tech to win this game, who's just been unstoppable, winning 10 games in a row. Also, 7th straight 10-win season for Frank Beamer of Virginia Tech. Way to just get it done, way to just be consistent year in, year out. Mike, who do you take?
I'm taking Virginia Tech in this game. Tyrod Taylor, the quarterback, he's a dual threat. You got Darren Evans, who's taken most of the carries this year. Ryan Williams was injured for most of the season. This is coming on special teams, played here and there, but I like Virginia Tech to win the ball game. Florida State, they do have some variety on their offense as well. Ty Jones and Chris Thompson, 2 running backs who combined, if you combine their yards, they've got about over 1,300 yards rushing. So Florida State just needs to refrain from turning the football over. That's really what it boils down to. And I know it's easier said than done, but Virginia Tech, they find ways to win game because they exploit teams on special teams and they exploit teams on defense, and they possess the football because they can run it so well with Tyrod Taylor and Darren Evans. So I think Virginia Tech gets the job done and goes to the BCS.
Well, everyone thought that Virginia Tech was in for a very disappointing year after losing their first 2 games of the season. They've won 10 in a row. There might not be a team hotter than them in the country, but I have a feeling Florida State's going to pull this out. Brandon Jenkins leads a very good Florida State defensive line and a very good Florida State defense, and I think Christian Ponder is going to have a good game this against Virginia Tech. Tyrod Taylor is an excellent quarterback in his own right, but something just tells me that Christian Ponder is going to come up with a big game. I think that we'll see another upset in the ACC. I think Florida State's going to win.
Yeah, and that Florida State defense is playing a lot better this year, and as we all like to talk about, Mickey Andrews, especially you, Mike.
I love Mickey Andrews. I miss him on the sideline.
I miss him too, but that defense is playing a lot better this year since he's not on the sideline. But I still miss him. If he ever wants to come on this show, he does have a standing invitation. And before we go, we got to talk about the Big East. There isn't technically a Big East title game this weekend, but if West Virginia wins this weekend versus a 4-7 Rutgers team, and UConn loses, then West Virginia gets a BCS bid. But if UConn goes on the road and wins at South Florida, then UConn gets a BCS bid and wins the Big East. A little bit of bragging rights on the line. I picked West Virginia at the beginning of the year. Mike picked UConn. Mike, is UConn going to do it?
You know, UConn's 1-4 on the road this season, 6-0. They're night and day. I think they go down to South Florida with the energy and the idea of this BCS berth on the line. I think they get the job done. Jordan Tobin, the running back, he's the entire offense. Yeah. And if South Florida is going to beat UConn, it's going to have to come from them stopping Tobin and forcing Zach Frazier, who's only got 5 touchdown passes, to throw the football. West Virginia, they'll easily beat Rutgers. This West Virginia team's second in the nation now in scoring defense. They're doing a really good job. Noel Devine, he's still there, if you can believe it. Jock Sanders, a really good wide receiver, and Geno Smith, who's had a great year as well, only a sophomore. This West Virginia team in the future under Bill Stewart is going to probably win the Big East down the line. TCU coming into the conference 2 years to make it interesting. But I think UConn ultimately wins and goes to the BCS.
Hey,
I really don't care too much about the Big East. It's by far the worst BCS conference out there. West Virginia is going to beat Rutgers there. That's a team kind of decimated by injury, 4-7, only 1 win in the Big East. UConn, though, 1-4 on the road. Mike thinks that they'll go into South Florida with the energy of enticing BCS bid. I just don't see it. I think South Florida wins at home. They're a pretty decent football team. West Virginia has not shown the history to win on the road yet. So or UConn hasn't shown the history to win on the road yet. I think UConn's going to lose, West Virginia's going to win, and West Virginia will go to.
You know, my classic line, Preston is always made to be broken.
Well, you know, everybody's
so we'll see on
everybody's
Saturday.
making such a big deal about UConn only winning 1 game on the road, but South Florida has only won 1 Big East game at home. I think that's something to take a point into. But yet, I think South Florida loses. Actually, no. They beat UConn. I just wanted to get you guys, see if you could get a reaction out of you. I think UConn loses, and then West Virginia, the Mountaineers, Bill Stewart, one of my favorite football coaches, coming off the big win versus Pittsburgh. I like them to win this game. They're playing a lot better than they did earlier in the year when they lost to Syracuse, blew a lead there, blew a lead to UConn.
Yeah, if it makes you feel any better, despite UConn winning 16-13 against West Virginia in overtime, I still think West Virginia is the better team and more well-equipped to win a BCS bowl game than UConn.
For Mike Rabin, Jake Burgers, I'm Alex Salzma. Good night, and go Hawks. Speaking of those Hawkeyes, tune in next week. We will, I think, talk about bowl games. Hopefully we'll be maybe going to the Outback Bowl or something, but we'll talk about that sometime soon. Didn't want to talk about it tonight, but see you next week. Good night and go Hawks.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, well, we could go on a rant.
I could. I'd be pretty fired up if I went on a rant.